And we should be live. Give me just a sec here to make sure I get all my cameras working here. That should be better. And there we go. Get that fixed. Make sure this is all good. All right. Welcome everybody to another live stream repair. We've hopefully got a pretty easy day here for us. We've just got two HomePods sent in to us. First one comes from Casey, and it's got no power. And then the second one we'll look at also has no power, and that one comes from Justin. So let's go ahead, before we start any repairs, let's just do some quick diagnosis and sanity check here. Just want to make sure that the symptoms the users told us are what's actually going on here. And it also gives us a little hint as to what's actually going on inside. So if we plug this into power, yes indeed, we've got no signs of life. But if we look at our watt meter here, we're pulling about 4 to 5 watts from the wall. So because we're seeing a couple of watts being drawn, we can take a reasonable guess here that we've probably got the shorted diode on the amplifier board issue. If we saw only 1 watt being pulled at the wall, it would more likely be a shorted capacitor in the logic board. And then if we saw no power being pulled at the wall at all, then that would most likely be a blown fuse in the power supply. So those are the 3 most common no power repairs that I do here. The shorted diode on the amplifier is by far the most common of those 3. So, and that's pretty much the same symptoms we're seeing here with this HomePod. So let's disconnect that power, crack open a beverage, and we'll get started. And before I forget, I'm going to turn on my soldering iron now so it's nice and warm by the time we need it. Alright. Let's get cracking. We're going to get our spudger under that top touch cover and pry it up. Keeping our tool nice and level with that plastic there so we don't scratch it up from underneath. If you do end up putting some scratches into it that allow light to shine through and it looks ugly, then you can, I saw this suggestion from another person, but they just use some whiteout. And for the black ones, I imagine you can use like black paint or a marker or something like that. Oh, hey, welcome to the stream, Cameron. Hey, Nick, do you working on a solution for the flashing volume buttons? Unfortunately, at this current moment in time, I have pretty much given up on the flashing volume buttons issue. I'm going to continue to go around, the internet and try to spread awareness of the issue and hopefully get somebody else on board who's got a big enough brain to maybe come up with a solution for this. But unfortunately, I've exhausted pretty much anything that my current skill set can do. So it sucks, but I'm hoping somebody will see the opportunity here and step up. But hey, PJ, welcome to the stream. So you're PJ, not Casey. I was looking through my emails for a Casey, so I actually replied to the Casey's Gmail. So they I don't know if that's you or you had someone else send it out. I'm sure you told me all of this in your email, but let's get this display taken out. I don't know if Apple will start a repair program for this. How long did it take them to put out the repair program for, if you remember the original issue with the graphics cards that the 17-inch MacBook Pros were having, the unibody MacBook Pros. How long did it take for them to put out a repair program for those? Because if it took that long for them to acknowledge the problem and put out a repair program for that specific product, and you know, you got to admit the 17-inch MacBook Pro was probably far more, like they probably sold way more 17-inch MacBook Pros with that problem than they did HomePods here. So the motivation behind a repair program for the MacBooks made more sense to them, but I think they just don't see enough people with these that they think they can get away with just not caring and sweeping it all under the rug. Oh, okay, that's your spouse. That makes sense. Well, I'm glad you could make it to the stream with us here. Watch your HomePod get fixed up here. There we go. Gotta make sure that logic cable there is fully unstuck from this basket before we go and start prying it out. I mean, I've beat the snot out of these nails. It's about time for some new ones. Alright, we are ready to commence the pry. Gonna get our big fat flathead here and just go straight to town. We're just gonna try to loosen it up a little bit at a time. It'll take us a few trips around the perimeter, but better to take it nice and slow and try not to crack anything or stab your cable here. Yeah, there we go. I think it's about ready for rippage. There we go. Go ahead and pick off any of that extra glue so when we go and put this back on, it sits nice and level. Oh dang, yeah, it is getting real late. Get some good sleep, Cameron, and thanks for joining. Let's pull this woofer out. Alright, let's check the condition of that woofer while we've got it. Voice coil looks to be in good condition. Feels nice and smooth. And it smells just fine. That's a good woofer. Switch up those cams. Boom. And we've got our main suspect out. Let's switch back cameras again so we can get nice and up close to that. And we'll just, for good measure here, go ahead and test this diode. See if it's shorted out like most of our other no power repairs here, or if we've got another mystery. If it ain't working, smack it. And yeah, that is a very shorted diode. So certainly bad here. Let's go ahead and get that pulled off and replaced with a new diode. We'll see if that fixes our power issue, and then we'll boot this board up and check it for DC offset. Be free, little diode. Let's stick that into the graveyard. Break out a fresh new diode. Give me my diode back. There we go. Soldering, I was trying to take my component from me. Got a little more flux on there for good measure. All right. Let's give this a second to cool down. We're gonna clean some of that extra flux off of it, and then we'll see if this board powers on, and if so, if it's got any DC offset. It's my favorite word, DC offset. Still a little too hot. That's better. Let's power this up. All right, moment of truth. Yeah, we got power. And then let's get our multimeter put onto our subwoofer here so we can check out that DC offset, if any. All right. Cool. Board has been booted up. We're gonna power on the amplifier now. And we see about 28 millivolts. Let's see if that decides to increase on us. Yeah. Let's hang out for a minute and just see. I have a feeling this is going to just keep growing, and we'll probably want to replace those filtering capacitors. Yeah. I mean, it's below 50 millivolts. That's really what we want to see, but just in the minute we've been sitting here, this has grown from 27 to 37. So let's go ahead and replace those filtering capacitors just for good measure here. Not necessarily any behavior I'm seeing that would guarantee that there would be issues, but definitely early signs of those problems coming up. So we'll get those caps replaced. We got them. Okay, let's bring you guys back down here so you can see what I'm doing. And these are the 4 capacitors that we are going to replace. That should help alleviate the increasing amount of DC that we saw coming onto our woofer here from that amp. So let's get those replaced. Let's start by preheating the other side of this board a little bit. That should be good. There we go. Old capacitors are gone. Let's grab ourselves... Woo, sent you guys for a ride there. Let's grab ourselves a fresh set of new capacitors. Put some flux onto this board. And then we're going to put some fresh solder onto those pads on the board before we put these capacitors into place. Beautiful. A little more flux. Get our hot air and we'll start putting these new ones on. All right. Again, we just want to make sure this is cooled off before we just power it on up. Alright, that should do it. Alright, let's see what we got here. And let's give this a sec to settle down. Still a little warm too from our soldering work there. But this is what I want to see here, is I would rather see it approach 0 millivolts than see it starting from 0 and growing from there. So just making sure here. Alright, we're down to 17 millivolts. If we hit below 10, then I'll be happy. Yep, sure enough, looks like it. Alright, that one seems all freshened up and ready to go. We got that DC offset under control. Let's go ahead and take off these spare parts here and get it thrown all the way back together. No, this shouldn't change anything with the sound. It should, ideally, it should sound exactly the same as it did from the factory. And that's because we are using the same specification for the filtering capacitors that they should be using, at least. Without schematics, we don't know for sure, but based on the schematics for the evaluation board of the amplifier I see that Apple used in here, we were able to gather that they are most likely using 16 volt 10 microfarad capacitors, and we usually replace them with the exact same specification, but we don't buy the cheapest ones you can get. We spend the money and we get the nice ones. We go on, we use reputable places like DigiKey and Mouser to buy our components, not eBay. Now, I mean, doesn't mean I haven't gone on eBay, bought some components, and then tried them on my own repairs. But for everybody else, I stick to the good stuff, because I don't want that stuff failing on you. Oh, you were kidding? Well, you got me. I'm bad at picking up on jokes and sarcasm. But I mean, it's a fair question. At the end of the day, these capacitors are removing DC from the audio signal that's being amplified. Inherently, that's going to also filter out some of the audio that gets passed through. So I mean, if you use different values for these capacitors when you replace them, you are going to have a potentially slightly different sound. But I would be very impressed if you were able to notice. And I mean, not like you and me, the average Joe, but even like an audiophile. I'm not quite sure if I've got full-fledged audiophile ears myself. I can definitely tell the difference between good and bad audio, but I don't spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on various headphones and in-ear monitors and like USB DACs for my computer. No, none of that. I do have some nice headphones, but I just usually plug those straight into my home theater receiver or the audio built into my computer, and most of those are good enough for me. I've come across some, like, for some reason HP and Dells, like, those tend to have like really crappy sounding audio. But a lot of my custom built desktop PCs that I've just used personally, they've got great, fine onboard audio. Yeah. Yeah. Subwoofer is secured. Excuse me. Goodness. Gosh. So I was ranting on Reddit, right? I made a post in the HomePod subreddit complaining about how many bricked HomePods that I've got for parts just sitting around, waiting for the day that Apple so graciously allows us to restore the software on them. I made a post about it, just to kind of continue to try to spread awareness of the blinking volume buttons issue and how arbitrarily irreparable it is. And somebody made a comment saying, like, why bother investing in a dead product? Just move on. And I laughed out loud. I was like, you couldn't be more anti-repair than this statement right here. Can you imagine if you bought a new car and a few years down the road, the manufacturer pushes a software update to your car that makes it completely undrivable. You can't even start it and use it or do anything with it anymore. It's completely bricked. And instead of the manufacturer fixing it or letting you fix it just by simply restoring the software on your car, they tell you, lol, it's an old car. It's a dead product. Just go buy a new car. Unbelievable. And I know they're gonna get their ass reamed on Reddit because they're making a comment like that in the HomePod subreddit. So I didn't even need to reply, but I figured I'd put in my 2 cents and tell them pretty much just that. Is like, this isn't a legitimate, just because you think it's dead, first of all, is not a legitimate reason to not try to find a way to repair something. But in addition to that, like, it's just by principle, like, this product is barely a few years old. $300 smart speaker, crippled by the fact that Apple won't let you click the restore button on your Mac. I thought that was just an incredibly naive comment. Makes me wonder what goes through these people's heads. Well, I guess they can just afford to buy new shit when their shit breaks. It's not a problem to them. Like, they don't care. But, like, I have a hard time believing that they're justifying Apple allowing these things to happen to these speakers and letting them fail like this because it's a dead product. There's so many things wrong with that statement in my opinion. It's like for a second I thought like I was arguing, it felt like I was arguing with somebody like over the election results. Not to get political, but like it felt like they were trying to tell me to like freaking cope. And it's like that's not how owning your own shit works. But hey man, I get it. You're the kind of guy that leases his cars and gets a new one every 2 to 3 years. You're the guy who leases his phones and gets a new one and trades the old one in every year or so. You've never had to have, like, you've never even, like, kept anything for longer than a year or two, so hey, I get it. I understand your perspective. But the majority of people don't really appreciate buying something and then when it breaks, the manufacturer not allowing you to fix it. The last screw. Time to drop the top. All right. Time for the moment of truth. Plugged into power. Drum roll, please. Yeah. Powering up.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Alright, everything checks out. Siri's got bass. And the volume buttons line up nice and even. So this one's all fixed up. Ready for at least a few more years of good use. Let's set that back into their box. And let's break out Justin's HomePod for repair. We're probably going to end up doing the same thing here with Justin's that we just did with PJ and Casey's here. So let's go ahead and update that text. Nice. Get that all lined up again. Very good. And let's get Justin's box opened up here. Oh boy. I see a thoroughly wrapped HomePod. Oh boy. Let's see if we can find a way to open this. Well, I was trying to keep the bubble wrap, but that's okay. Alright. Plastic bag ASMR. Alright, so this one should be the same as the last with no power. Let's go ahead and plug it into some power and check out the symptoms here. So sure enough, no signs of life and about 5 to 6 watts of power being pulled from the wall. So like I said, probably the exact same thing we just did here. Let's get this cracked open and find out what's inside. Lovely. That popped off like a treat. There we go. Get that ribbing cable unstuck. Oh, come on, you bugger. Might have hit you guys in the ear there, but we got that off. Sorry about that. Alright, time for the woofer. Hard part's over with. And of course, as I go to say that, the screws for the subwoofer have to go and make me break a sweat here. Jeez. It's times like these where I consider buying a electric screwdriver, but I'm afraid they don't have the torque necessary to take these things out. Oh. Good freaking grief. Ah. That was harder than prying the basket off. What the heck? Oh. Let's peek that woofer. Voice coil looks good. Feels nice and smooth. Smells just fine. That is a fancy freaking woofer. Be free, little amplifier. Alright, what do we got? What do we got here? 1746K on that diode. It's probably shorted out. Let's give it a check. Come on. There we go. Yep. She's a short. Alright, same deal as before. Let's give this a second to cool down. And then we'll power it on up, see if it actually works now. And check it for any DC offset. The usual, you know. Hey there, JKVBE. Not sure how you normally say that, but welcome to the stream. They asked, thinking of buying a used OG, seller claims it sometimes farts and then restarts. Is this something that can be fixed? Also, he says it does not connect. So, the farting and restarting can be fixed. That's probably the filtering capacitors on the back of the amp going bad, allowing too much DC through to the woofer, and causing your death farts. That's something that I fix quite often. Totally repairable. I'm not sure what he means by does not connect. So, it's, yeah, while the HomePod's restarting from a death fart, of course it's not going to be connectable during that time. But I'd like to know more info about what they mean by specifically just does not connect. But the death farts alone, that can be repaired. That's easy peasy. All right, time for the test. And yeah, we got power. So let's get our multimeter connected to the subwoofer here so we can get an idea of whether this has also got any DC offset issues. All right. And this one's sitting pretty cool at 4 millivolts and falling. Okay, so this one looks like it's got a pretty respectable offset here. No reason to do any further repairs on this one. It's all ready to rock. Oh, JK, that's what I'm gonna call you. But if you want, you can email me a link to the HomePod that you're looking at. See if I can figure out if it's if I can make any more sense of what the seller's describing here, and I can tell you if it's something I can fix or not. They say it's bulk items return seller. It's possible they just haven't reset it or some stupid thing. Oh, that would make sense, yeah. Like when they say that it can't connect, they probably haven't tried. You're right, they probably didn't factory reset it and bother trying to like actually set it up. So if it's death farting, then the good news is the woofer is probably still in working condition. But if you ignore the problem, the source of the death farts, that DC offset that we always check for on our meter when we get the boards powering on, when that voltage gets so high, that's what triggers the death farts. In addition to that, that voltage isn't healthy for the subwoofer. So long term, it can cause damage if it's ignored. Short term, it could also just blow the speaker out if it farts one too many times. And I mean, a death fart, if you think about it, a death fart, you're basically just playing a like a bass drop sound at max volume. And I could imagine they're only going to take that so much before they just give up. But if it's not the death fart that kills it, it's the DC that comes from the death farts that will eventually cook the woofer. But if it's farting, if it's actively farting, then at least that's a good sign that the woofer still works. after we finish putting this HomePod together and testing it, since we've only gotten 2 HomePods in today, I'm thinking maybe we will go and count how many diodes I have, which will give us a somewhat decent indicator as to how many HomePods we've repaired so far on the channel here. After about a month or two of me starting to offer HomePod repairs for everybody, I started keeping all of the diodes that I replace. And I replace the diode in every single HomePod that comes in for repair. So it's a pretty good indicator of how many I've repaired. But I didn't keep any of the diodes during my first month or so. So probably add another 25 to 50 on top of whatever we count after we wrap this one up here. But I'm curious to see how many diodes I've got from repairs. And I'm sure you guys are too. Come on. Come on, you bloody... Alright, there we go. Let's give them a go. And drum roll, please. Yeah, we got power. Let's go ahead and do our usual checks here, and then we'll go ahead and count all of our diodes and see how many HomePods we fixed up here in total. All right.
I'm having trouble connecting to the
Yep.
I'm having
And yes, sirree. Everything on this HomePod checks out. We've got it all fixed up and ready to go. All right. So let's go ahead and bust out the broken diodes here. Go ahead and count exactly how many that we've replaced in our time here. So I've got a few different piles going on here. I've got my dead diode pile from all of the repairs that we've gotten in for HomePods that needed this diode replaced. And then I've also got a separate pile of diodes that have been replaced from HomePods that have come in for repairs unrelated to the no power shorted diode issue. But because it's such a prevalent issue, I just go ahead and replace this diode on every single HomePod that comes in regardless. So we've got two different piles here, and when these fill up, I move them into my containers here. So let's go ahead and start counting, I guess. So we're gonna have to go ahead and get all these into one spot, put them in our containers, and then we'll count them out of the container. Oh boy, we've got a lot. Oh geez. Oh geez. Okay, so we've got all of our diodes organized into two piles now. So let's go ahead and just start counting, eh? This is going to take a while. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. Why is my stream reconnecting? Hello. Okay. 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74. Is anybody still watching? 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90. I'm not answering that. That is a spam call. What was I at? 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, and 131, 132, 133. So we have 133 diodes, shorted diodes. So that tells us that we've gotten, add another 25-ish from the first month or so I wasn't keeping these. So we've got 130 to 150 HomePods that have come into us just for the no power repair alone. Strictly just for the no power caused by this shorted diode. 150 freaking HomePods. And then, if we also count not just the broken diodes that we've replaced, but the working diodes that we've replaced just as a preventative measure for HomePods that have come in for unrelated repairs, on top of the 130 to 150 we've already got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 and 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. 41, 42. All right, so from just purely the number of diodes that I've kept for my repairs, we've got, I forgot already, 30 or 40 of these, 30-ish. 30 HomePods have come in for repair for other than no power issues, and then 130 have come in specifically for the no power issues, for a total of about 160 HomePods, not including the 20 or 25 or so, or however many I didn't keep during the first 2 months of my repair. That's a lot of HomePods. I don't know about you, but I didn't quite think I had that many already pass through my hands. But we are plenty prepared here for many, many more HomePods to come in, and we're not stopping anytime soon. So I hope you all enjoyed this live stream repair and joining us as we learn to count to 130 or so. Hope you all enjoyed, and if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. Go to my website, nixfix.com, and shoot me an email. I've also got a whole bunch of information on fixing your own HomePod or sending yours in for repair here on the channel. So, all that said, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and goodbye!